to thank the staff for their support with their board reports and presence to answer questions of the board. We appreciate it. And following our chair's direction to increase transparency with TCHC board meetings and committee meetings, BIFAC is committed to moving as much into the public session as possible, and we're doing this with the full support of our CEO and the senior leadership team. So we have a full agenda for our public session, and so I would like to move right into the consent agenda. And could I ask if there are any items in the consent agenda that anyone has any questions about and would like to have pulled? Amanda, Anna? No? So could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Brian, seconded by Nick. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion is carried. Could I ask if there are any conflicts of interest that any committee members have as relates to the agenda presented today? Hearing none, I will move on to item number 3, which is the facility management reports. And I will ask the Vice President of Facility Management, acting. And could you introduce yourself?
Certainly. Alan Murray.
Hi.
Alan, you need to be this close to. Sorry, you need to be this close to the mic. You need to speak directly into it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Nice to meet you and welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So today we're seeking approval for 3 contractor awards for building improvements as follows. We have the first one, which is a contractor award for envelope repairs at Pelham Park. The second is for fire alarm replacement at 7 locations. And the third is for duct and vent cleaning, which is across the portfolio.
Could I ask if there's any questions for Alan?
I'm sorry, did you guys go through the consent agenda? I can't hear anything.
Oh, you can't do it. Sorry, I did ask if anyone had any questions or wanted to pull any items out of the consent.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing anything.
Anna, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I did ask Anna. Sorry, did you not hear?
No, I didn't even realize we had started. And I do have questions on E.
I guess this isn't.
You have to speak right into it.
Okay.
I think the microphone was off.
Okay.
Oh, okay, because it was on from the previous meeting, so I didn't, sorry, my microphone was off. So I will go back to the consent agenda. Anna, did you have any items that you wanted to pull?
E. Yeah, I have questions on E.
E?
Okay, so before we vote on number 3, can we go back to item E from the consent agenda? Is that the only item, Anna?
Yes.
Okay, and Amanda, if you weren't able to hear me, can I ask you if there were any items from the consent agenda that you would like to pull?
No, there aren't any.
Okay.
So generally, the board has delegated to PAC the authority to make awards within certain financial restrictions. And as part of that delegated authority, PAC reports up to BIFAC on awards that it has made on a quarterly basis. And so what you have before you today is the awards that have been made by PAC, the Procurement Awards Committee, in the 3rd quarter of 2019. And as well, revenue contracts that have been entered into by TCHC during that same quarter that are between $500,000 and $1.5 million, or $5 million. There are no such revenue contracts that have been entered into in the third quarter that fall into that category. And in attachment 1 to the report that you have before you today, you have the number of awards specified in the attachment that have been made by the PAC committee during the third quarter of 2019 that are for contracts and change orders up to $2.5 million exclusive of taxes.
Thank you, Sarah. Can I ask my question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I would like to understand on page 2, the first line item, there's a $2 million contract for training of CSU.
Yep.
So the first question is, was this approved in our CSU plan, and this is just the execution? And what kind of training are we talking about? And who's executing this training? The Control Institute Incorporation?
Anna, can we hold that item and just come back to you on it, because no one from CSU is in the room and we don't want to speculate on it? Okay, thank you.
And I do, and I'm sorry, I didn't realize item F was also part of the consent agenda. I do have also questions on that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
So Councillor Halson has questions on it.
Item F?
And just, so ask her questions about this.
So
I think someone here is here from internal audit. Oh, there you are.
So Councillor,
Anna, please go ahead.
Okay, so I couldn't understand from the report if you are recommending to change the categories or if you've changed the category.
Hi, which category are you specifically referring to? Is it one of the HMS categories?
Sorry?
Just speak directly into the mic, speak close to it.
Sorry, can you repeat your question, please? Which category you are specifically referring to? Is it one of the HMS categories that we have referred in the report?
Yes, you're in the report, you say that non-rentable units have been removed from inventory. Which non-rentable units have been removed from inventory? How did you do this? Is this a recommendation? Was this, like, are we changing the way we calculate things, the categories? Like, what do you mean by this?
So, asset management basically defines the various different codes that we have in HMS. There are 27 of those. And the non-rentable units which were excluded, it's not our decision. We just audited the calculation in the CEO's report. The units which were removed were those units which required major maintenance or which were held for the medical and safety priority transfer program.
Okay. So my question now to Kevin is, Kevin, are we still going to see the board? Are we still going to see those numbers, but just in different categories? Which I agree, they're not rentable. But is the board going to continue to be kept apprised of how those numbers are doing?
Short answer is yes, and other thing that I would add, this is not a change in process. This is the asset management group had previously segregated between rentable and non-rentable units. And so in terms of calculating the vacancy rate, it was always looked at rentable units that were vacant, not non-rentable units.
Okay, so we're going to still see both numbers and then the rate. Okay, thank
Yep.
you. That was it for me.
Okay, so can I go back to the, do I have to go back to the motion for the,
I'm going to suggest, I don't know that we've got somebody here from CSU yet. I'm going to suggest we move on to item 3 and come back to 2E when we've got somebody here to
Okay.
deal with it.
so we're moving on to item number 3.
We're back to item number 3.
Yeah.
Just the other thing, Alan, that we should just include in this is that these items are on the schedule for capital maintenance. It's part of the budget process, and in fact that they are all within budget and within plan for the capital. That's correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Just one note, for duct cleaning, that's actually, it's not capital, that's included in our operating.
Thank you. Good point.
So just to avoid any confusion, can I ask again if there are any questions on items 3A, B, and C for Alan?
Just one question on B, just as it relates to Tyco. Is that how you say Tyco, the company?
Correct.
It mentions going with a different manufacturer. There's additional works and costs that would be incurred, given it affects other building components. Can you comment on the order of magnitude of those extra costs that would be incurred by going with a different, are we talking about, just order of magnitude of those extra costs as it relates to using a different supplier?
Yes, the systems are proprietary at these locations, so that's why we've chosen to go with Tyco. Going with Tyco will cost us about roughly $86,000 per unit or per building to have it replaced. If we were to go to another provider, we'd be paying approximately $250,000 to redo everything in the building.
That's a good order of magnitude difference. And then the only thing I don't see here, in terms of Tyco specifically, I assume they're in good standing with us as an organization in
Correct.
terms of the quality of their work and so on.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Could you just highlight where you got that estimate? The 250 and did you go out to other suppliers? What was?
That was in speaking with my program team on it, who are familiar with fire alarm replacement systems and what it would cost roughly.
Okay, so it's in-house knowledge, not?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions? So could I have a motion to approve 3A, B, and C, the contracts in 3A and B and C? Nick? Brian? Any opposed? Thank you, Alan. Motion's carried.
Thank you.
And I guess no one's here yet. Can we move on to number 4? Okay. So we're going to move on to item number 4, which is the direct award, the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement.
Good morning.
Hi.
So we're seeking approval for a direct award to Microsoft Canada in the amount of approximately $1.3 million to obtain licenses directly through Microsoft Canada by enrolling in an enterprise agreement. So what an enterprise agreement is, it's a volume licensing program that offers the lowest overall pricing for public and government organizations with an excess of 500 users. This is only available directly through Microsoft, and we would not be able to obtain this pricing through a reseller. Obtaining the licenses for a request for proposal would yield no additional benefits to TCHC and would come at a significantly higher cost. And also, enrollment in Microsoft's agreement gives TCHC the ability to procure the Microsoft licensing we require to implement our IT strategy for the next 3 years.
Are there any questions in regards to the Microsoft volume?
Just as it relates to, is this a renewal or is this a new?
It's new.
It's new.
So we had previously purchased as required through an RFP process. This is now enrolling in Microsoft's enterprise agreement to give us access to a number of products we require, so it's new.
How would this compare to the previous cost?
So these are different licenses that are on the agreement than that which we have previously purchased. In the confidential information, we outline the information of what is new. So this is what we require to execute our strategy going forward.
So it's a different scope, and so?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Can I just ask, on page 5 of 5, it notes credits. I'm presuming that those are credits for the cancellation of previous licenses?
Correct. So back in 2018, we did do a purchase for compliance. So we were out of compliance for some of our Microsoft licensing. In our discussions with Microsoft, they are providing credits to us for that previous purchase, and that's documented in the confidential information.
And are those credits fixed? Like they've agreed to those credits?
So those credits are based on when we entered in the agreement. If we enter into the agreement after October 31st, those amounts will decline, will come down.
Okay, and again, I was just curious on the motion that we're approving the 1.3, and it's before October 31st, so should we not just be approving the 1.1?
Those credits would, if it's approved, then we will receive those credits scattered throughout the 3 years.
So it's not so as I understand it, the 1.3 becomes an upset limit
Correct.
to purchases that we may make. We will pay for what we purchase. The credits should reduce the amount that we are required to spend over that 3 year
So the credits are a result of co-termination of previous purchases during that compliance purchase that we made. So those are all co-termination of other purchases we had made in the past. So the credits don't apply to new software, new licenses.
To clarify, I think the question is whether or not in giving approval to enter into this agreement, if we are guaranteed we're receiving the credits, do we need the 1.3 or do we only need the 1.1?
So we will receive the credits if we enter into an agreement. I'm going to get Linda to step up for a moment. Enter an agreement for those that we've already purchased. So those co-termination, that's where the credits apply.
So the question, Louisa, let's come back to the question.
Yep.
Because we are in October, and the credit date expires October 31.
Yes.
Do you need approval of 1.3 or 1.1? It's kind of a yes or no answer to that question.
It's 1.1.
Okay.
1.1.
Thank you.
So can we amend the motion to the 1.1? Okay.
So the amount is the amount that is
1.104,
identified at the table at page 5.
right? That's the correct number.
That's correct.
Perfect.
Exact amount, not just
Pardon?
the exact amount.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so are there any other questions for Louisa? Anna, Amanda?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay, so could I have a motion to approve the recommendation to acquire the Microsoft Canada totaling 1.104?
That's
Okay.
exclusive of taxes.
Yes, exclusive of taxes, sorry, yes. So can someone move the amended motion? Brian? Nick? All opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
What did I say, all opposed? All opposed? Any opposed? Sorry. Hearing none, motion is carried.
Before we go to the next one.
Can we go back now?
To
Okay, so that was item E.
Anna?
Yes?
Okay, so with regard to the training that you were asking about with CSU, it's a 3-year contract of just under $705,000 a year. And it is for compliance training for our special constables to meet the standards of the Toronto Police Services for them to actually become special constables. And it's got basic training for the new recruit. It's got annual use of force certification, and it's got a refresher element to it as well. Included in this is the work that the training that we do with regard to diversity on the CSU force as well.
Okay. And it was already budgeted for, right?
What's that, sorry?
It was already budgeted for as part of the program?
Yes, it's part of the regular budget. And so
okay.
Right, okay. Any other questions you have on it?
No, that's
I
it.
think Brian does, though.
Oh, Brian?
As this is, I guess, important training to get those individuals, I'm just concerned that once we give the training, do we have any leakage or people moving on? And is there any way to ensure that this amount of training actually benefits and we don't lose people after a year with us and then move on, and then we've got to start with new people again?
That would be a nice life. The reality is that there, you know, if organizations like Toronto Police and other organizations, you know, our recruitment, there is more security being used across the city, so there's just a higher demand, and it puts people at risk.
I guess maybe more specific, is there any way when we're doing hiring to get any guarantees for at least 2-year commitments?
Our practices, and Derek can speak to that as a labor lawyer, I don't think that those are, I mean, you can ask for those. I don't think that they're enforceable, perhaps outside of the military is the only one that I know that can effectively enforce that, Brian, unfortunately.
And the staff, I think, who would be subject to this training are, if I'm not mistaken, OPSU staff. So their employment is going to be governed by their collective agreement with us, and that's not likely the kind of provision that we'll be able to secure through collective bargaining.
Okay, just a thought. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the thought. It's just one of the messy realities we need to deal with. Thank you.
So we did approve the consent agenda, and then we pulled these out. Do we have to go back and?
No, I think we've approved items on the consent agenda, except for these 2 items. So all we need is a motion then to approve items
E and F.
E and F, which were held out of the consent agenda.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve items 2E and F from the consent agenda? Nick?
So moved.
Anna, I'll second.
Yep.
Any opposed? Motion carried. So now we'll move on to item number 5, which is the Fire Life Safety Program update.
So the report that we put forth to the committee does outline, it does provide an update on where we're at in terms of the fire life safety initiatives right across TCHC. For the benefit of the committee, a little bit more than 18 months ago, the TCHC had significantly invested in establishing the corporate team per se. The team is comprised of 11 staff members who really coordinate fire life safety activities across the organization. And as you can appreciate, in terms of fire life safety activities, the services are delivered through a variety of functions. So, for example, through the operations group, we work closely with facilities management, asset management, and as well as CSU on a wide variety of activities. Now, in terms of the key deliverables, when we established the department, there was a clear work plan in which we outlined the key deliverables, and those have been outlined in Appendix A. In parallel, what I can say is in the course of 2019 and in comparison with 2018, we have seen a positive trend in the fire statistics. So we know that there is a 13% decrease of fires monthly right across the portfolio. As well, when you look at the notice of violations that are issued by Toronto Fire as a result of their own independent external inspections, those numbers are projected to be down as well. So in terms of our ability to move the needle, I think it's been effective in the last 18 months. And again, in parallel, we've been also working with TFS, for example, in developing and rolling out the public education program, which we actually recently rolled one out last month at the Regent Park area as it relates to cooking safety. In terms of the priorities for the program moving forward, I would say that the program has now invested a lot in putting up the structures to collect and correlate a lot of data points that relates to fires across the portfolio. I think we're in a position now to take more of a data-driven approach as it relates to targeting our initiatives in education right across the portfolio. And we've been doing some of that already in terms of how we conduct and target our inspections, where we focus our education efforts, and making really the connection between the data and where we focus our activities. So in terms of next steps, I think the program will continue to heavily rely on data, both ours and those that have been provided by TFS, but also continue to leverage the partnership that we've been developing with TFS along the way.
Kevin.
Just, John, could you clarify, certainly given that notices of violations are up, for re-2019 to what date? Is that to August or September?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry.
The 2019 data, is that as of August or September?
That's as of September.
Okay, September 30th?
Yes.
Just to be confirmed?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Is there, just in terms of the work that you are undergoing, can you speak to what we are doing to rectify the increase in notice of violations?
So the team actually has a set process in place to address the notice of violations. So when we receive those are essentially tracked through the department, and the team actually reaches out to the impacted parties, whether it be through facilities or asset management, to really get the ball rolling in terms of what we need to do to rectify the issue. In this process, I can tell you the team touches each one of those files on a weekly basis, either through an electronic follow-up or actually in an in-person meeting, which we have with the impacted parties.
Okay, and just for further clarification, do these include the violations that our own inspectors would note, or are these just from Toronto Fire Services?
So these are separate from our own inspections that we conduct internally.
Okay.
The 33% is separate from what?
Correct. So we have, so this data in front of you on table 2 is based strictly on the TFS data.
And do we track those violations, whether it's a managed building or?
Yes, we do. Yes. For both direct and contract managed buildings.
And is there a difference? Are there more violations in the contract managed?
I'll get Michelle to speak to the actual nuance of the data.
Just curious. So it's another metric we should be tracking for our contract managers.
There is a bit of a difference. We do find that there are more notice of violations right now issued for contract managed sites because Toronto Fire has a vision on those buildings right now. One thing I just wanted to mention is the notice of violations have gone down for 2019 from previous years. So we are trending lower this year than we have in previous years. So we do have 78 that are open right now, but at the same time, we have 235 open to date, which is trending lower than at the same time any previous year, including 2016.
I think the percentage open, anyway, that jumped out at me and I didn't appreciate I was looking at the percentages and the stark increase. But it's just the open issues,
Just the open issues, yeah. There are 33% open at this point.
Okay, and the totals are declining. Okay. And is that a metric that we use for the contract management violations?
Yes, we keep track of them all, and we review them all. John did mention about our internal assessments, so which is different from the notice of violations, but we have gone to every single one of the contract managed sites as well, and noticed an increase in the number of contraventions identified.
Kevin?
Perhaps so just and we talked about this at the council meeting and the committee meeting at the city. Jim Jessup made me aware of his concern relative to the contract managed space. In July, and we put together a plan to actually do a blitz on contract manage on a group of contract managed buildings. Found a higher than typical incident rate of violations in our own, so that through we will ensure that we have visited every contract managed building and have a aggressive rectification plan in place on that to bring them up to standard.
Okay. Brian?
Do they also, the NOVs, include false alarms or not?
No, they do not. That's a separate stream.
Sure. Okay.
Maybe just explain what a notice of violation is.
Okay, so a notice of violation, Toronto Fire have mandated that they're going to go and attend some of our buildings, majority of our buildings within a year. So when they go to the buildings, the inspector walks through and identifies parts of the code that we are in violation of. So they write those up on what's called a notice of violation. And examples could include doors not working, holes in walls, stuff in the hallways, paperwork for fire alarm deficiencies, things like that.
I didn't realize that. I thought they were doing.
Can I was just asking the chair if she understood that we actually have our own inspectors that do the same work that Toronto Fire does. And so I think what would be helpful just is to prepare a document that can be distributed to the board in terms of what we have been doing on fire life safety over the last couple of years. Again, it is because we have so many new board members, on it. I think it'd be a good refresh. So it doesn't have to come back to a committee, but I think in terms of a brief on what we are doing in the program and the results that we're having, I think would be helpful.
Okay, we can put that together.
So then just to clarify, these 235, they're in addition to the ones that we find internally?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Issued by Toronto Fire.
Okay, and is that a concern that there's 235 in addition to what our inspectors are seeing? Should we be concerned about that?
So basically what we're doing is our inspectors are going prior to Toronto Fire in order to bring those numbers down. And based on the trending at this point, it is working. We've received very positive feedback from Toronto Fire indicating that their violations are a lot less, so they're not really finding as much as they were prior. So the program is working. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would just hope that our inspectors would know the standards and that they...
And so as an example, if we go and inspect a building and a door needs to be replaced, so it's a fire door and needs to be replaced, and the lead time for that door is, say, 6 weeks.
Okay.
Toronto Fire comes along 3 weeks after we've done the inspection.
Okay.
They're going to note that there's a violation even though we have a remedy, because in fact, it is a violation.
Yes.
Right? And so the answer to the question is, we are pleased that things are going down. There is, until you get to zero, there's probably, there's still work to do.
Yes.
Just in terms of it. And so,
And my concern was that they weren't noticing violations, not that we hadn't had a
Right.
chance to remediate.
right. Yes.
So that makes me feel better. Brian?
Are there costs related to those numbers that are there penalties, basically, from the reports from the fire services that are costing us? Is there
Is there a cost to the notice of violations? Is that what you're asking, Brian?
Fines. Yeah.
however they do it?
Are there,
Do you have fines?
We don't currently have, I think there are 3 files in.
There's currently 3 files right now at the moment that it's in the, going through the system in terms of violations. We haven't received any indication of fines to those yet, but it could proceed if that was the case.
So they are being rectified in a timely manner?
Is it true that the fines have been escalating in value? And that the latest ones we've actually been getting has been around 50,000, but they can go now up to 100,000?
Yeah, Anna, you're referring to the change in either the regulation or legislation that effective July 1st, the minimum fines and maximum fines for fire offenses escalated significantly. We had actually settled most of our claims, before then, and so I think there is 3 potentials that are outstanding. So when we're doing the update on the report, I think it's important to outline the impact of notice of violations from a financial a fine perspective as well. I think that's helpful. So because not every notice of violation results in a fine, is the conclusion that one draws. On this, okay?
Brian?
I'm not sure whether this falls under this category, but with regards to the false alarms, there are significant costs related to those, I believe, and I just wonder in future whether that should be included as part of this report, because obviously false alarms impact on tenants' well-being in their units, and obviously they happen at 2 a.m. or something like that. It's not great, especially if there are seniors involved in that and other potential risks. And I just wonder, I'm not sure whether this is the right place to capture that, but certainly I would think that we would want to monitor that aspect as well, and seeing if there are strategies, again, to reduce those false alarm claims, because I believe they're quite costly to, well, not just to TCHC, but any building that is being investigated as a result of false alarms.
So we can certainly include, we do have the data points for false fire alarms, and to your point, there is I would say, a significant impact, financial impact to TCHC, but also the impact that it has on tenants. So we can certainly bring that for the next round of report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Nick?
No.
Oh, sorry. Anna, Amanda, do you have any questions?
Nope.
And just when we bring that report back on false alarms, what the other housing providers, and perhaps Brian can share his experience, as well, what they are doing to reduce the strategies they are implementing to reduce false alarms, and that applicability to our portfolio. Thank you.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the report as received? Brian, Nick, any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. So we'll move to item 6, the last item on the agenda, which is our regular update on the tenants first.
So Lindsay is going to join us, but I know that Lindsay is suffering from laryngitis.
It's getting a little bit better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do that.
I don't think so.
Am I, yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Great. Okay. So I'll just give a really brief summary on the report. So for the overall process around Tenants First, we're meeting monthly. Those meetings are led by the CEO and the city manager, and each of the teams that's working on each of the work streams, which can be found in the attachment, each of those teams reports in monthly to the CEO and the city manager. Then on the mortgage substitutions, you'll note that the first and second tranches of those property substitutions are set to close with Infrastructure Ontario in October and December. The Scattered Houses RFP is set to be made public in Q4, and the city is doing their final due diligence on that document. With respect to the severances, we're moving ahead on severances and have had a number of hearings at the Committee of Adjustment. We're continue to work closely with City Planning and the Tenants First team to streamline the severance process. There are a few cases where an official plan amendment might be required, which would increase the timeline, so we're working on that. That's going to be, some of that's out of our control to some extent, but we are working closely with planning staff. And then finally, with respect to the agency and uninhabited houses, I need to let the committee know that there's been an update. So when we submitted the report, we understood that the bulk of the agreements of purchase and sale were going to go out to those agencies shortly. The city's since let us know that there's going to be a delay on sending those agreements out to all but 2 of the agencies. So we're working with them to update the timelines, and the next time we come before the committee, we can update those. But I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that it's sort of emerging information that we've got from the city on those agreements.
And those are city agreements as opposed to TCHC agreements. So the city has carriage of that. Well,
we have carriage of the agreements, but we are, the city has, they have input. Marilyn's here and she can maybe speak to the sort of the nuances of that if you're interested, but the agreements are from us, but there's a component that the city has to sort of give us the go-ahead on. Okay, and that's where the delay is coming. The city's asked us to hold back on issuing those agreements while they work out some things on the back end.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So if anybody has any additional questions, I'm happy to take them.
Brian?
You said all but 2?
All but 2, yes.
So those
there are 2 that are going out. One is for Rena, and I'll ask Marilyn what the second one is, who the second one is for. Do you know who the second one's for? Yeah.
Egal?
No, it's not a gal. Hang on, I can find it.
Sorry, it's a D Street.
If you can speak into the mic, just so Amanda and
Yeah.
Anna can hear you as well.
So we're just trying to, so one of the agreements is with, we know is with RENA, and I'm just trying to find the name of the agency that the second agreement that we're okay to go ahead with on. Yeah.
And did they give you any indication on when the other ones would be moving forward?
We haven't got that indication. We're working with them.
Okay.
Maybe we can see if there's any other questions while we're waiting.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions, just while Lindsay's trying to collect that information?
Yeah.
Anna? Amanda?
No.
Okay.
Where in the city is it?
So this is being managed through the Tenants First team at the City of Toronto. And they are working closely with the Shelter Support and Housing Administration because there's some components around the subsidy that will be transferred to the housing providers and those kinds of things. So but if there's questions that the committee has, I can bring them to the Tenants First team, and we can report back.
Can I just ask, is Dixon Hall, is that a not-for-profit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So it's Matthew House is the second agency at 981 Dundas. Thanks, Roseanne.
Is that the name of the nonprofit, Matthew?
Yes, Matthew House. Yep.
Are there any other questions on this matter? No? So can I have a motion? Thank you, Lindsay. Can I have a motion to receive this report? Brian, Nick, any opposed? Hearing none. Motion is passed. Is there any other business for the public session? No. Could I have a motion to terminate the public session of the BIFAC? Nick? Brian? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion to terminate is carried. So thank you very much.